Hello there. Welcome to this episode of Force Ghost Conversations. This is your host, Anthony King, and this week I'm joined by Tiara from Crafting on Ilum to discuss Part 3 from Andor Season 2. If you are a fan of the podcast and would like to consider pledging your support, there will be a link in the episode description for you to check out the various tiers offered. Also, please be sure to check out our TeePublic store to buy some Force Ghost Conversations merchandise. And without further ado, it is time to gather around the campfire for some Force Ghost Conversations. Boy, do we have another action-packed installment of Forest Ghost Conversations for you today, everybody. I am so thrilled to finally get into part 3 of our Andor Season 2 conversation. And these were a fantastic set of episodes about fascism and the dangers and horrors that come with that, and what someone or what all of us can do in order to rise up against it. And the rebellion is truly formed as a result of these episodes here, as we know it in Star Wars Rogue One and Star Wars: A New Hope, and these are just excellent. So, of course, thrilled to have Tiara from Crafting on Ilum back on the show to chat about these episodes in detail. And we just have a few bit of news items in the Cloud City Gossip portion here before we get into that main topic discussion here. And of course, with it being Andor season 2 season, right? It's kind of been a weekly drop here, but every Friday they've been releasing on streaming platforms the music for that set of episodes for the week. So for this part 3, it's now available on any streaming platform, and you can check out Brandon Roberts' wonderful work of the series. I've so far been working my way through part 1. I'm still a little behind on that, but also just catching up on podcasting in general that I've had to in my queue basically, and I've been really enjoying what Brandon's been doing and picking up from Nicholas Bertel for the season here. And of course, Andor does conclude next week, so we get the climactic part 4, the finale of this series, and so be on the lookout for that as well. So 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern time next Tuesday, May 13th. That'll be it. And earlier in the day, on Tuesday, May 13th at 12 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, you can catch Diego Luna and Tony Gilroy, as well as many other from the cast on YouTube, kind of chatting about it. They're doing a live Q&A. So try and get some of your questions answered then, I'm sure. But I bet they'll be able to, well, I should say, I bet they'll be unable to answer a few questions, as the finale will be later that evening then. In other Star Wars news, though, we did get the announcement of a new young adult novel featuring both Finn and Janna, and this story will actually take place post Episode 9. So finally getting some more foray into this post Episode 9 world and seeing where their heads are at as characters beyond this, and also what the state of the galaxy is like at this point, too. It'll be written by Kwame Mbalia, and the story will come out on October 21st. And we did get a little bit about the story what it will entail. And it seems like it will feature both Finn and Janna reconciling with their past and origins as stormtroopers. So maybe some more about that, and kind of a bit of that tease that was given at the end of The Rise of Skywalker. Maybe a little bit of Lando in there too, about finding out where they came from and all that stuff. So very excited for this one. Did not expect to have this on my radar at all. I love these characters very much, and can't wait to see what this story has for us in October. And well, folks, that's all the news that I had for this week. We'll be back on the other side of the short break with our conversation with Tiara on Andor Season 2, Part 3. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Force Ghost Conversations, everyone. And boy, these episodes of Andor just keep knocking us out week in and week out. It's a shame to be on the East Coast for these because, man, those 9 p.m. starts really just mess with you. I don't know about you all, but like it's tough to go to bed right away afterwards. And by that point it's 12:30. I'm like, work's coming in the morning. But we are here to chat about part 3 of Andor, which is arguably a masterpiece. And we'll get into all the details of this and all. But we have a guest, Tiara, who you may know as Crafting on Ilum from all the social media platforms, particularly Instagram, I think is the majority one. But Tiara, welcome back to Force Ghost Conversations, and how are you doing?
Good. Thank you so much for having me back. I'm excited for this conversation about Andor because it was definitely, as you said earlier, juicy.
Very juicy. A lot to talk about. 3 episodes that are almost an hour long each. And,
Yes.
when I saw that, 9 o'clock hit yesterday, those 3 episodes came on, and I'm like, okay, 45, 50, an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Holy cow. But let's start with the conversation that we're back in the Andor era. And so far now, we've got these 3 parts. In a sentence or two, what are your initial reactions to the season so far?
I have loved the political thriller aspect of Andor since like the first
Mm-hmm.
season, and I love that being continued on, and it has gotten more intense, and the visual is just more beautiful with it. Like the shots that we see in Andor are quite impeccable. Like there's a lot to digest visually and in the
Mm-hmm.
dialogue. So I love the intensity of all of it. They definitely, leveled up from the first season.
Agreed. Yes, they like a sequel. It's times
Mhm.
two. Everything is to the next level up,
Yep.
right? The writing is more intense, the action is more intense, the cinematography is taken to the next level. The outfits, the costuming of it all is
Yeah.
is through the roof again. Uh, I have no complaints about this season so far, personally, and I'm glad to hear that it's just blowing your mind too, because I know you're a big Andor fan. So glad to be back in this Andor space again.
Yeah, I mean, I have like little qualms here and there, and it particularly has to do with like the time jumps. Like, I think it helps
Hmm.
with the pacing of everything, but I feel like there are just some like loose ends that I have to sit with for a little bit to be like, all right, like,
Yeah.
is this too big of a loose end, or is it just like up to the audience to draw their own conclusions here? So I mean, we still have one last arc to go. So after that, we'll
Correct.
have plenty of time to reflect and think about all these things.
And in this last arc, we'll finally find out about Cassian's sister.
Maybe. Where's B2? I've been asking that in every one of my reaction videos because you were bringing up how tired you are like the next day and not being able to like
Hmm.
sleep. And that was me yesterday. I could not stop thinking about the episodes and I was having a hard time sleeping because of it. But every single reaction video that I record, I'm like, where's B2? Where is he? I don't
That's
understand.
like your like your Vader moment, right? Where is Padme? Is she safe?
Yeah,
Is she all right? But you're like, where is
exactly.
B2? Is he
Exactly.
safe? Is
He's
he
just in
okay?
the wheat fields being like, well, maybe they'll come back. Like it's just sad to think
Where
about.
is Cassian?
Yeah,
Is he okay?
exactly.
Oh, that poor guy. I hope we get like an epilogue. Um, full spoiler.
Yeah.
Also, full spoiler for folks for part 3 of Andor. If you haven't seen it yet,
Yeah.
I don't know what the heck you're doing listening to this episode right now. You better go watch it and then come right back to this moment. You've been forewarned because everything is on the table at this point.
Hmm.
But yeah, I'm hoping that maybe Bix went to go find B2 and they're just living out in the galaxy
I hope so.
safely.
I hope so. Honestly, yeah.
They deserve each other. They deserve some happiness, knowing that
Yeah.
Cassian doesn't have a happy ending.
Yeah. Yeah.
At least they can.
I'm hoping for that epilogue. I hope that it gives a little bit of like a little nice bow as to all of these open-ended stuff.
Yes, yes, yes. Time will tell.
Yeah.
We're gonna head to perhaps our last question here on that one. So let's jump to another one here before we
Sure.
get too in deep in that one. And particularly, I'm interested in this one because you said that you had a paragraph for this response here. So let's dive into that paragraph here. So the first episode starts with Cassian, who's now on Yavin 4 with Bix, seeing a Force healer who provides him with a prophetic message. Cassian is a messenger. What do you make of this prophecy? Go ahead and start the paragraph.
Yes. Okay. So a couple of points here. I was like, I wonder if Cassian is force sensitive because she was able to read him so like clearly, or if
Hmm.
it's just about like this prophecy around him. And we know how it ends. And so when I was watching episode 8, I had this like big epiphany during my reaction video, and I literally like clapped my hands and I was like, oh my gosh, like everything is clicking. So the
Yeah.
lady on Ghorman, after they slam into K2, she's like, you have to tell people what's happening here. Like people have to
Mm.
know what's happening here. And this isn't the first time that Cassian has been told this. Melshi has told him. Other people in Narkina 5 have told
Yeah.
him that. Like he has been told this so many times, and it just clicked for me that he is the messenger. He is the one one who is gathering people, inspiring people, leading people with this message of like transparency as to like all these atrocities that the empire is committing.
Yes.
And then not only does it like start there, but it ends up with Bodhi the pilot bringing this message of like the Death Star
Mm-hmm.
plans and the flaw that's in the Death Star, and brings it to Cassian and Jin, and he's the one who takes that and like fulfills that whole mission on Scarif. And so he is literally the messenger for the
Yeah.
rebellion. And so when she said that, everything started connecting and clicking. I was like, what a line to include and like sum up who Cassian Andor is.
Yeah, what really could be a like weird moment of like, oh, what is this kind of like fortune teller basically kind of
Mhm.
person here, to then ultimately get at the core of what Cassian is as a character.
Yeah.
He's a leader, yes, and he's a rebel, yes, but he's also the survivor and messenger, like you
Yes.
said, of these horrible things that have been taking place across the galaxy
Yeah.
from the time that he was a young kid, with Marva and all of them surviving, to Ferrex and Aldani as well.
Mhm.
And who knows all the stories in between there that he's going in, fighting, coming out on the other end. Um, and yeah, like you said, it all leads up to Rogue One, perhaps the ultimate message
Mhm.
of it all, where it ends with him and Jin being like, do you think anyone heard our message? Do you think anyone received it? Like,
Exactly.
they don't even know if the
Exactly.
message fully gets, like, if someone's on
Yeah.
the other end listening.
Yeah.
They don't even get that solace at the end of all
Yep.
things.
Exactly. Like, just it's so poetic. When I heard it, I was like, "You are a genius, Tony Gilroy. You are a freaking genius with this one line." Like, I don't think like speeches in Andor are a really big thing, but like this one particular
Hmm.
line, I felt like it just was really beautiful in comparison to like all the monologues we get. Yes, those are impactful, but this one in particular, it just I've never heard a line like sum up a character more perfectly.
Yeah, it's his thesis statement in a
Yeah.
way, which I
Yeah.
think just like, what's the point? People will say, "What's the point of the show?" And it's like, to tell us who the messenger is.
Yeah.
Like, to get us to a new hope, you need to have a messenger,
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
and Cassian is that through line.
Yep. Yeah, he is the catalyst for all of it, for sure.
Amazing, amazing stuff here, and I like that Bix is on Yavin 4. They've got this hut.
Mhm.
What did you think of their living quarters on this planet?
I liked seeing more of Yavin 4. Like we always only see just like the runway, and we see a little bit more in
Yeah, just some of the
Rebels.
temples and all that, and yeah.
Yeah, but this time we got to see like the living quarters of the rebels who are on Yavin, so I really enjoyed it. Like I don't know if people had issues with like the setup, but I thought it was really cool.
No, sign me up. I mean, they all can't live in the base.
Yeah, exactly.
Cassian and Bix, arguably, yeah, they need some privacy.
Yeah.
Um, and it just makes sense that not everyone would like seclude themselves to living in like soldiers' quarters.
Right.
It's
Exactly.
their base. It's like their home.
Mhm.
Um, and they're ready to rock and roll. This is
Yeah.
awesome.
And like Bix, she wanted a home. Like, Ferrex was her home, and when
Mm-hmm.
they're in that safe house, she's like, we might as well make this our home. And Cassian, they're always on the
Yeah,
run, but when they get to Yavin 4, they finally get to make a little home for themselves, even though it's not quite their home because they're in the midst of a rebellion. But it's something.
totally, totally. I think it makes total sense to me. Um, that they had this nice space there. If Cassian is this like integral spy, right? Like, Mon Mothma is not living with everybody in the
Yeah.
temple.
Right. Right.
I bet General Draven's not in the same quarters as everyone as well.
Yeah.
So I thought it was just nice to add to this Star Wars story that we now know of, that
Yeah.
there's like all these different huts all around there,
Mhm.
probably, where people are living and making their space.
Yeah, exactly.
So as I prophesized last week, the Ghorman story comes to a conclusion this week.
Mhm.
The buildup over the first two parts comes to a head with this genocidal massacre that has been foretold by the Empire that was going to happen. How did you feel upon seeing this massacre unfold?
I was blown away by the building blocks to it,
Mm-hmm.
like for a lack of better words, because we see the empire stage literally all of it for years, and it's like
Yeah.
little seeds here and there with the PR and and then we see the blockade, and then we see their snipers up on the roof, and they're the ones who snipe their own people.
Yeah.
And that was just like the energy and the extent and the manipulation that went into it for this resource to do this whole massacre simply for resources. And seeing it, it felt so, it felt like such a mirror to like what's happening in today's current day.
Yeah.
And so seeing that, like, I don't know, like the accuracy, and like we don't
Hmm.
really stop and think about all of the little behind the scenes stuff that's happening in real world. So to see it like happening in the empire, like when we watch Star Wars, it's not something that we're thinking about. We're not thinking about like the individuals or the little behind the scenes stuff, but being able to see that completely unfold, I was just, like pretty taken aback by it, the complexity that is involved
Yeah.
in it.
I will say I was blown away. Just like and we knew it was coming. Like
Right.
this wasn't a surprise, but to
Yeah.
see it, I was still devastated by the sheer horror of it all.
Yes.
And the fact that we only spent a few episodes and not even full episodes, just parts of episodes with this group of people, this planet, learning about their culture a little bit here and there. Um, and the fact that I feel at the end of all things here that like I'm sad that they're experiencing this. I'm like, wow, that's really
Yeah.
just a great buildup along the way to get to that point. So kudos to Gilroy and team for the writing and the execution in order to elicit a true human response out
Yeah.
of both myself, it sounds like you as well, and many others across the internet as we've been reacting to this.
Yeah, I mean, the emotional aspect was definitely there because I mean, we see the Gorman people, like their culture and like their pride in their culture,
Hmm.
um and that's kind of like their downfall. They're like not their ego and pride, but like the empire kind of uses that against them,
Against
and
them, yeah.
uses it for their propaganda, and turns that, gives them a bad rep because of it. And so it was definitely emotional to see, specifically because of the leader. I forget his name, but he's the father. I don't remember his name or
Oh,
his role.
Rylance.
Yes, and him, like, realizing at the very, that's the part that got me the most, was that he realized what they had played into the Empire's hand at the last moment, and he was trying to save his people, and, obviously
Yeah,
pretty impossible at this
yeah.
point. And so that really got to me for sure.
Oh man, and him taking out Cyril later, just yeah. It's just all it's poetry. It rhymes. It's all tragic.
Yeah.
This whole thing was just. It's sad to see people literally pawns to a scheme,
Mhm. Yeah.
right? Like the Empire played everything perfectly the way that they wanted it to. They
Mhm.
got enough agitation out of them. They did enough meddling in their affairs. They force everyone into this barricade spot. They get them riled up.
Yep.
They put this green group of stormtroopers out there that they know they're going to start firing on them if agitated. They get the right sniper to shoot.
Yep.
It's just they orchestrated this perfectly.
Yeah.
And the sad part is it's also Luthen and the rebels also utilizing this sacrifice as well. Like the Gormans are just the martyrs for to one and the
Yeah.
terrorists to another.
Yeah, and oh my gosh, now that you say that, it goes perfectly with how Mon Mothma was like standing up to Krennic in the last arc
Same
about
deal, yeah.
what did he say? What was the exact line? Like, your
Oh, he
terrorist
was like,
is
"Oh,
your
your rebel is
rebellion.
my terrorist" or something like
Yes,
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that's, I love what Andor has been doing, is like showing both sides of the coin, like showing the individuals within the empire, and then showing the individuals within the rebellion in this like morally gray
Hmm.
area that we all live in. Because Star Wars is very like black and white, and I get that for some
Yeah.
people it's not their cup of tea for the characters to be morally gray, but I think that's what
Hmm.
I love, the complexity of characters when they're in this like morally gray area, because it asks the hard questions. And like we all need hope. Like Star Wars is about hope, and so we need that like black and white and like good prevailing against evil, but it is important to have these stories and these conversations about like what is
Yeah,
right and what is wrong, and like what is too much to ask of someone, in these types of situations.
for sure. I mean, Cassian has that back and forth. He's like, I don't want to be a
Yeah.
part of this.
Yeah.
And then,
He always shows
frankly,
up.
like the Gormans don't want any. Like they're in the middle.
Mhm.
They don't know they're being played by both sides to some degree.
Yep. Yep.
Literally, they're
Exactly.
caught in the middle
Yeah.
of a big firefight.
Yeah.
Just tragic.
Yeah.
That's the saddest part of all this. That it then leads to both
They
sides
had no
emboldening their.
autonomy. They were just
They have
like,
no choice in this matter.
"Yep.
That's right.
Mhm.
Oh man, and I want to hear your thoughts. This is where seemingly where Cassian learns the line "Rebellions are built on hope."
Yes."
Did you like that tie-in here? Do you like this origin story of the phrase that then we'll then hear a lot in Rogue One?
I think it's more impactful when Jin says it because of everything that is happening in that particular situation. Not to like minimize the Ghorman massacre, but that will always be more impactful. However, what was really cool for me to see was probably how Cassian felt when Jin said it, because
Mm-hmm.
it made him remember this insane tragic massacre. And so when she says it, it's like, oh gosh, like it's like reinstilling the faith, because when we meet him in Rogue One, he's less rogue, than he was
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
before, and he just follows orders, and he's
Yes.
more pessimistic, obviously, because of everything that has happened. But when he hears Jin sees it or say it, I'm sure that like that moment replays in his head, and he's like, all right, like this is the time. um
Mm-hmm.
and it like reinstills that faith and like hope in him. But yeah, I enjoyed it for that aspect. And I don't know how other people felt about it, but I enjoyed Jin saying it more so. But I like the backstory,
Hmm.
like the weight that it adds to when Jin says it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's a through line,
Yeah.
right? It's that like, all right, we know what it meant to Cassian, then Cassian says it, and then Jin is able to utilize it at the right moment to get at
Exactly.
least Admiral Radis up in arms, they're ready to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Love it, love it. So I want to talk about the Syril and Didra of it all, and they have this really climactic confrontation with each other as this massacre unfolds, both
Mhm.
before, during, and even after.
Mhm.
Do you think that this instance, particularly the one where it gets physical between
Mhm.
them,
Mhm.
very much a physical altercation, to put it mildly?
Yeah.
Do you think it this serves as quote unquote their breakup of sorts? We'll start with that one there.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like when we meet them again in this arc, I feel like there was already a rift between them, and it's because
Okay.
of all of the secrets that have been taking place that Deidre is like holding from Cyril. And then also, I don't know if it was me like inferring and like reading too much into it, but when he says, "I needed to see you, I needed to meet you," with the daughter of the
Hmm.
head of the Gorman rebel cell,
Hmm.
and then she slaps him, it kind of gave me the impression that there was a little bit more happening within the last year
I
between
think so
them.
too. Yeah.
And like Deidre isn't present, and like obviously Cyril has mommy issues, and so they have like a complicated relationship to begin with. um and so I wonder if Cyril found a little bit of solace in like an equal to him, and then also
Hmm.
had a little bit of bitterness and resentment towards Deidre for not including him in more of the plans or the details of what's really happening. And then we see that, and then Deidre like
Right.
aggressively kisses him, and he's taken aback. Like he's like, "What is
Yeah.
happening?" And like it didn't feel like reciprocal. It didn't feel like his feelings were still there. So I don't know that this was like a breakup, but it was just the breaking point for him to be
Yeah.
like,
Okay.
no more. I do not want to associate with you anymore.
I picked up too on that kind of romantic underlying
Yeah.
that was between the Rylance's daughter
Yes.
and him.
Hmm.
You made a note earlier that was like, some of the time jumps, you wish you had some gaps filled in between there because you're making
Yeah.
some leaps there. Is this one of those leaps that you think you're making that you wish that maybe you'd have had like a few more episodes, you'd have had like more concrete answer on that one
Yeah,
rather than just like, I feel like this.
yeah, just a little bit more of, like, a concrete insinuation, like, it doesn't even have to be like, "Yep, they were together," just, like, a little bit
Hmm.
more to allow the audience to be like, "Okay, this is what happened," and it could take, like, a few seconds to give that answer. And another one was what drove Cassian to not want to work with Luthen any longer, like, what was
Hmm.
his last mission, what happened there, obviously
Right.
the things with B2, and a little bit more on how they were established on Yavin. Like we see it in the first arc, and then we there's nothing that happens on Yavin or relates to
Right.
it at all. So I'm just like, how did they gather everyone there?
Hmm.
So stuff like that the time jumps didn't really allow to have further exploration of, and I just felt like we could have gotten a little bit more on all of those if they took like a couple of extra minutes, like maybe like 3 minutes to give a little bit more of an answer to. But that's just my opinion. Like obviously nothing's ever 100% perfect, but yeah.
That's true. And now Tiara's hoping for a series of comics and books that will explain the interludes in between all
Yeah,
these different
exactly.
episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah, this whole altercation was real interesting for me.
Mm.
I having just seen, Revenge of the Sith is top of mind. In a way, it seemed eerily similar to me
Mm.
of like the Padme Anakin confrontation
Sure.
at the
Yeah.
end there,
Yeah.
where she's like, "What are you doing?" And Deirdre, and then Cyril's like, "What are you doing?" And then she's like, "We could be together. We got like it's almost like Anakin saying, "We can make things the way
Yeah.
we want them to be. We don't have to
Yeah.
hide anymore."
Yeah. Definitely.
And they're both like looking in the eyes of this fascist person here, and they're like, "I don't know if I can go along with this."
Yeah.
Like Cyril is very much a loyal company person,
Mhm.
but it seems like he draws the line at genocide,
Yeah.
which he can see playing out in front of him here, and also being a pawn to it.
Yeah, and he was in denial, like, up until the last few minutes, like, when
Yeah,
when the father confronts him, and he's like, "I don't know what you're talking about," like, I don't even remember what exactly he says, but basically he, like, plays dumb to it, and because he's in denial,
yeah,
until he finally confronts Deidre, and then when he walks into the room with the KX droids, and I'm pretty sure the K2SO droid is the one that stared at him a bit
I'm
longer,
sure. Yeah,
a little bit more personality there. But even when he stumbles into that room, he's kind of like having a panic attack as to like, oh my gosh, the revelation of like what he's played a part in. And
hmm
then finally is able to, get that answer from Deidre, even though she doesn't explicitly say what's happening.
yeah. Their relationship was super toxic to begin with.
Yeah.
Um, and I asked his next question here because she's clearly really upset when they're chatting here, and I'm
Mm.
curious about your thoughts. Is he more upset about the fact that she didn't tell him about the real plan, or is he more upset about like his connection to the Ghorman people now and feels for their plight and is like anti-genocide?
I think it's both. Like I think it's equally
Equal.
both. I
Okay.
don't think that it's one or the other. Um I think Cyril his character wants to or wanted to have purpose within the empire, and he
Hmm.
finally feels that with Deidre. um and obviously a relationship, brews between them. It is very toxic, and so I don't think you can place it as one or the other because of the complexity or toxicity of their relationship. And
Right.
then also with that insinuation that like he's been there for what? I think it's 2 years, a year, and so, like, he's
Two
immersed
years. Yeah.
himself in the Ghorman culture and then, like, possibly had an affair with this one girl, and so maybe he has more, like, affection for the Ghorman people, and then it equally, like, dawns on him, like, "Oh my gosh, like, I could have had a place here, I could have had purpose here, and, like, I've destroyed it."
I was
I've
doing my
played.
job.
Yeah,
I was good at
yeah.
it. I mean, just like, yeah. And then, she's like, everything is because of me. You got all the promotions. Like, I
Right.
put you in this place here. That kiss that you mentioned, that like, it's just like that seal of like, you are everything because of me.
Mhm. Yeah.
And like, he's like, I can't go along with this anymore.
Mhm.
And
He's also a pawn. She was using him from the very beginning,
yeah,
and he didn't realize it. Yeah.
his one instance of saving her,
Mm.
and then she's used him from then on out, right?
Yep.
Now it's interesting looking back at the the dinner with the mom,
Mm-hmm.
where she's like, he'll meet you when I say he can, basically. He's moving to Ghorman now because he's my pawn here in this game to start enacting the plan that I've been tasked with doing.
Yep.
Um, ultimately, and then it leads to his demise.
Yep.
It's wild. It's wild that we ended up at this point. I didn't predict that this would be how he meets his end.
Yeah, me either. Me either.
And I didn't think I'd feel sad and tragic for, like, I see the humanity in this guy a little bit more.
Yeah.
I feel like I was like, okay, this guy's definite, the prototypical branded incel. This guy that feels like he's been wronged, and he feels power through the Empire, and then he's been lifted up to this elevated staff position because of his loyalty to them, and he's definitely not in cahoots with the bad guys, basically. Ultimately, then to realize that this isn't right, and I'm privy to this. So, like, in his passing, he'll be martyred forever, in a way. Like, I think, like, I think I heard on the HoloNet that, like, they were talking like, oh well, all the Imperial soldiers and officers and workers that died, like, they'll have their names etched in history. And, like, he turned his back on that at the end. So it's wild. But he has that run-in with Cassian first, before he does get shot in the head by Rylance. In that scene, how it plays out, did you get the sense that he was, like, putting his blaster down, and would he have put it down if he hadn't been shot in the head then? Like, was there an option for redemption for him afterwards? Like, what are you thinking on how this whole thing went down?
Yeah, so the moment where I was, like, rooting for him to turn sides and, like, maybe he would join the rebellion, is when he's standing in the square and everything kind of, like, becomes that, like, staticky, like, ringing in his ear, and everything is moving in slow motion, and he's seeing, like, the extent to what he's done. And so right then I was like, okay, maybe there is hope for him. Maybe he can redeem himself by joining the rebellion and, like, using his knowledge of the Empire and help the rebellion, and he'll run into Cassian and maybe he'll team up with him. And then I was like, oh my gosh, maybe he runs into the K2 or the KX units and, like, reprograms one of them. Like, maybe it's him who, like, does that for Cassian and helps Cassian escape in that way. And then when they're fighting and Cassian asks him, like, what is your name, or, like, who are you, or whatever, I definitely saw him lowering his gun, and I think he was gonna tell him, like, my name is Syril, and, like, I don't know, like, maybe he was gonna help him. I definitely thought that there might be a moment, but then we see him get shot in the head, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I did not see this coming at all.
Yeah, there's no joy in Andor.
Yeah.
B2 being told to stay on this farm planet and go live his days off here
indefinitely
is the best we can get.
With no explanation.
No answer to how he's doing or anything like that.
Exactly.
Just assume he's okay.
Yeah.
But he also, by doing that, never gets to any closure as to, like, what's up with Cassian? Is he coming back for me?
Does he know that Brasso died? Did they ever tell him? Yeah.
Like, so, like, that's the best case scenario we get.
Yeah.
In this show so far. Maybe there's other people that get a happier ending, but we'll find out next week. Maybe on that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm like, yeah, it's crazy how seeing that people can turn away from something when it is literally the bleakest. Now, obviously, it's a little too late at that point to make any change there, but to realize the errors of their ways, like, you can always turn back. Which I think is a core theme of Star Wars.
Yeah.
So I think redemption was possible for this guy. I would have never thought that he would have ever wanted it, but it seemed like he might have wanted that later on here, potentially.
Yeah.
The thing that I find the most tragic and interesting about this whole thing, though, is that, like, all of this is because, like, he put all of his, like, hatred in some way into Cassian. Like, that was the bane of his existence.
He blamed him, for everything bad that has ever happened to him. Exactly.
Vader, Kenobi was it, right? Like
yeah,
everything was because of that guy. I have to take him out because he wronged me. He's
Maul
the problem
too.
Here. Maul, right? And Maul has that same focus. Like, it's Kenobi, got to get rid of him.
Yeah.
And for Syril, it was Cassian Andor.
Yeah.
He's the reason why I lost my good job.
Yeah.
as a corpo. Had to live back home with mom again, and then had to fight my way back up to where I'm at now, and then to be confronted by him, and then ultimately he's like, "Who are you? I don't even know who you are. You mean nothing to me."
Yeah.
Whereas he means everything to him.
Yeah.
Like, to realize that in your last moment, to be like, why did I hate this guy for all this when he didn't put any effort into me? He
Yeah.
doesn't even know me. I don't
Yeah.
think they even exchanged names in that first episode or the third episode in season 1. They never crossed paths again, but he knew his name, and he was like,
Mhm.
Cassian Andor. He's the guy. And yeah, that's sad.
To die knowing
That's the
that
tragedy of the dark side.
you were still no one, even to your enemy, you were still
Yes,
no one.
yes. No matter what, you were a no one.
Yeah. And
Oh man, that's
he's
his last thought was, I'm a nobody.
yeah, his whole life was to
I
find
die alone,
purpose,
and I'm a nobody.
and
I
he's
have no
still a
purpose.
nobody. Yep. Yep.
Horribly tragic, but I think for a character ultimately up to that point and through everything that he's done, word and deed that we know of, that's a fair ending.
Yeah. A twist for sure, but definitely fair.
Yeah, a true nobody to the end. Like, wow, that's
Yeah.
I never thought I'd be saying that's sad, but here we are. And then, for some reason, I'm feeling tearful seeing his mom recognizing that he's not coming home. Like, their toxic relationship too. And then she realizes it, and she's like, crap, I can't say anything more to him. There's nothing I can change about our relationship.
When we got that shot of his mom, what I was thinking in that moment, I was like, and this is just furthering the PR that because she's going to believe that the Ghorman people is what destroyed her son, is what
Yeah, she's going
took
to
her
believe that
son
Empire
away.
Holonet.
Yeah. And it was just like furthering the PR that they've started from the very beginning, because she was eating that up in the very beginning anyways. And so when I saw her, and I was like, this, like, how many other people died on Ghorman who are part of the Empire, who have family on Coruscant, who are watching this, and they're like, Ghorman is the problem. Like, I'm glad that the planet was like stripped of the resources and has died off. Like, that's probably what they're thinking. But it kind of goes hand in hand with Mon Mothma's speech, is like, what do we know is true anymore?
Oh man, when what I can't
Yeah.
remember the exact line, but it's like, whatever, how far the gap has become from what we know is
Yes.
fact versus what is said.
Exactly. That
Like,
was
man,
like the epitome of that too, seeing that.
center in the dartboard for real world comparison.
Yep.
On
Yep.
that one.
Yep.
And how will this empire exploit this narrative? We'll
Mhm.
say, great. Let them mine that planet for everything.
Exactly.
Who cares?
Exactly.
They deserve it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh boy. So let's get to the Mon Mothma of it all. And
Sure.
that's part 3 of this series here. So following the events on Ghorman, Cassian is then tasked with escorting Mon Mothma out of the Senate once she provides her climactic speech. So after hearing her speech, are you, Tiara, ready to join the rebellion now?
Oh, I've been ready to join the rebellion since I heard Marva's
You didn't need
speech.
it.
Marva's speech is what did it for me. Like, this old lady who's like, I should have been fighting the Empire for breakfast every morning. Like,
Fight the Empire.
yeah. um I again, growing up watching Star Wars, you just, it's the good versus bad, and like, we don't see the true evil, the true maliciousness of the Empire. And we see a little bit more in the sequels, but when I was watching, the original trilogy growing up, I wasn't thinking of like how bad the Empire was. And then
Yeah.
when I saw Andor, I was like, you know what? This is pretty terrible. Like, these people are pretty
Totally.
terrible. So when Marva had her speeches, when I was like, heck yeah, let's let's hop in an X-wing and blow something up. But yeah.
Yeah, totally. Star Wars is a buffet, right?
Yeah.
So you get the stormtroopers that can't hit a thing in Star Wars Rebels.
Yeah.
And you've got the Empire doing a variety of different atrocious things in the original trilogy, and other media related things. And then, of course, you have at the far end of the spectrum here Andor, where you're literally seeing genocide and planets being exploited for everything that they have.
Yeah.
And yeah, Marva's speech is great. Luthen's one, another good one. Saul Guerrera's last week was pretty good too. And then on the top of the cake here is Mon Mothma
Yeah.
giving it her all.
Yeah.
Under true duress, like no one wanted. They clearly did not want her taking the floor, so Bail Organa risked everything too,
Mm-hmm.
to find that loophole in the system to give her some airtime. And she hit the nail in the coffin there. She's like, they're coming for us. You know, they'll find some reason to take us out if we're in the way. No one is safe, and you better start fighting now. And
Yeah.
I can't idly stand by anymore. She's like,
Yeah.
I've been fighting in the shadows and being a thorn in the side of the Senate, but now it's time to start fighting openly.
Yeah, I think in her speech, you can correct me if I'm wrong, she says something about like being complicit.
Hmm.
I don't know if she does say that or she just insinuates it, but I really like that part too because just staying neutral and being apathetic to everything happening around you is just as bad as not doing
Yeah.
anything
Oh yeah.
or or
Totally.
vice versa. So I really like that portion of her speech too, and it was super emotional to see everything leading up to that moment because like
Mm-hmm.
I love Bail Organa so much, and nothing against the actor who is his recast or anything. Like he did a great job. But there's something about seeing like Jimmy Smits as Bail Organa, like he's just full
Mm-hmm.
of warmth
True.
and kindness, and then seeing him in Kenobi, and it just made me love Bail's character all the more because of everything that he sacrifices here. This double life that he has to continue to lead. For Mon Mothma, who is now, like the face, the head of the rebellion.
Mm-hmm.
So everything leading up to that was super emotional to see. Um, yeah, and Mon Mothma too, like knowing everything that she sacrificed to, and how Luthen's speech is like, "I'll, what is it? For a sunrise, I'll never
Whoa.
see."
I'll never see. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, and that's kind of how Mon Mothma's life plays out a little bit here. She doesn't have like the happiness of her family anymore. She doesn't have her daughter. She doesn't necessarily have friends
Yeah.
at
I
this
mean,
moment.
that's a good. I was going to ask the next question here. Like, what do you think happens to Perrin?
I have
Like,
no idea.
I don't know.
I
I don't know.
honestly, I have no like theories as to what happens to him. Maybe he's just like,
Poor guy
I
could be
had no
like tortured
idea.
for the rest of his life because of this.
Yeah, yeah. I I don't know.
That'll be all of next week's episodes. Is Cassian going to extract Perrin so that he can live on Yavin with her?
He would never. He'd be like, "Kill me before you actually take me to this place." He's
Probably.
a
He's
man
like,
of
I'm done.
luxury. Yeah,
I'm not living amongst this rebellion, this
yeah,
rebel scum. Yeah, but yeah, she's giving up everything. No, I mean, to be fair, they did a good job building up of like the family wasn't that hard to leave. Her daughter was not the best to her, and Perrin was also not a great partner.
I think she loved them to some extent and had affections for her family. I'm sure, like, I mean, growing up, you don't like think, you're gonna join this big rebellion and do all this stuff
Hmm.
and lose your family. And so everything that she's ever known in Coruscant and like with her family, I'm sure that was hard for her to separate herself from.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what was super hard for her to see was the reality of her actions. So once Cassian then gets her, and
Mm,
then they start walking, and then he actually has to start killing some people along the
mm,
way, and then she's like, "You just killed that person," and she's so shocked
yeah.
by it to see it in front of her, and like, "Yeah, this is war now, girl.
Yeah. And that line, "Welcome to the rebellion,"
Yo,
is
welcome to the
is
rebellion. You're in it now."
yeah. And I mean, like her, what is his name? Not Corgi. It's the guy that
What,
was
her
working with
handler?
Luth. Yes.
What,
Gosh, I
Erskine?
forgot.
I think is his name.
Yes, Erskine and Luthen has been shielding her and protecting her from like
Mm-hmm.
the bad part of the rebellion, like the
Yes,
dirty
yes.
part of the rebellion. So that way she could be the face of, the Senate and do what she had to do in the Senate and
Mm-hmm.
live this double life, because it was already so much. And so they took that weight off of her, and I thought that was really cool to see play out throughout the season as well.
I agree. I agree. They did a great job building up to this moment,
Yeah.
and now she's fully in. There's no going back. So I'm intrigued to see where she goes next week. As like we're fully on Yavin 4. We're there. what's the next mission before the last mission? How do we get
Yeah.
to that final step there? Um, but also the thing I liked about this is how they definitely let the space open for the Rebels episode to then tell its story.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're like, oh, Gold Squadron will bring her in, and they just were very much like, hey, do you want to watch her speech that she's going to make? It's a well, we can watch from my office if you want. Nah, I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this set of episodes ends with, frankly, a lot of stuff all at once, a lot of heavy things.
Mm-hmm.
Bix leaves Cassian, which is a big one. So first, I know you're a big Bix fan. You've done Bix cosplay before. Do you think that she made the right choice here in leaving and then taking the choice out of Cassian's hand?
See, so when I was watching it and I was recording, I was like, I need to sit with this for a little bit because I'm not sure if I liked the decision to leave.
Mm-hmm.
Because she has that big, not speech, but she's like, if I'm gonna be in this, I'm gonna like I want to win. I want to like either die trying or win. And so I felt
Yeah.
like her leaving kind of went back on that. And I
Hmm.
understand the intention is to remove any distraction from Cassian because of how important he is to the rebellion from the prophetic lady and her just knowing Cassian as a person, and seeing what he can do and how he inspires. But I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if it was, I don't know, like, it could just be me subjectively, me personally. I don't think that I like it, but I'm still gonna sit
Yeah.
with it a little bit more and think about it some more. But it just it just didn't really make any sense to me. And I
Hmm.
understand the intention behind it, but it still doesn't make sense to me. Um yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. So your initial gut reaction is the what, like, don't do that. Don't leave him. He needs you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's an interesting perspective on that because I'm like, she especially at the beginning with that whole messenger thing, like she ate that up
Yeah.
forever. Like she was full on believing that she's like Cassian is the rebellion, even though she was more rebel before he ever was.
Yeah.
She was working with Luthen and doing all that, and she was in it a lot more than he ever was until he eventually gets in with Luthen and all that stuff. But seemingly she was with it years before. Um, so it's interesting that she's still so for the cause that she's like, he's more important to the cause than I am. And if I'm around, he can't be his full potential.
See, that's the part that doesn't make any sense to me, is because, leading up to this moment, they've been stronger together, like they're able
Mm-hmm.
to do more,
Yeah.
to accomplish more together, like even in the last arc, like
The
when
last
they
episode
blow up.
ends with that.
Yeah, and like, so this is why it doesn't make any sense to me, because you win by fighting together, and like that's where the rebels have kind of gone wrong up until now. Like they haven't been united, they haven't been fighting together, and they're
Mm-hmm.
stronger together. And so it just kind of like goes back on that idea. So that's why
Totally.
I'm having such a hard time sitting with it, because like it doesn't make any sense to me. And again, I understand like how Luthen was like, you need to remove this distraction. He basically was like, you need to eliminate this distraction. Like Bix is a
Mm-hmm.
distraction from like having you all in. So I get that. But the whole point of that scene to me was to show how much Luthen has got it wrong. Like he himself is kind of a
Hmm.
radical in that sense of being like, everyone is my puppet basically, and like we all need to
Sure.
be in it just for the cause. So that's why it just doesn't make any sense to me. But maybe someone else
Hmm.
has a better analysis of it as to why it does fit perfectly for the story.
Hmm. And maybe next week we'll fully explain
Yeah.
the impact of what it does. Right, seeing
Yeah.
Cassian truly without fear or worry of what's at home.
Yeah.
Um, and especially it's interesting because seemingly Bix is somewhat healed by
Yeah.
she's no longer taking the drugs. It looks like she's
Mhm.
just not poorly sleeping at night. She seems a lot healthier than where we saw her in part 2 of this season.
Right.
um, so that whole thing of like, I have to be home because I have to watch her and make sure she doesn't OD on things and make sure she's sleeping isn't necessarily the problem that he's facing right now.
Yeah.
And it seems like the problem is, and like Cassian just like wants the choice to do what he wants
Mm-hmm.
and not commit to the grander rebellion and be like, I'm a soldier in this,
Mm-hmm.
where I get my orders, I do them without question, and then I come back and then I get my next set of orders and I go. He's like, no, I don't feel like doing this mission today, which you can't really do when you're at war.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Not that I'm trying to defend Bix's actions or not here, because I think I too am like, oh, that's interesting that you would even take the choice away from him, because that's unfair to Cassian.
Yeah. And then also, I feel like whenever Cassian is like, I don't want to do this, Bix is always in the corner of like, no, you need to do this, and pushes
Mm-hmm.
Cassian to do
Mm-hmm.
what needs to be done,
Yeah,
despite
she's
like
definitely a
all of
moral
her
conscience for him.
struggles. Yeah. So I just, that again, I get it, but I also don't get it.
Yeah, yeah. It's the choiceless choice of when the choice is taken away from you, you don't get you don't feel like you have a say in the matter.
Yeah.
And then how abrupt it is too. Like he just wakes up, she's gone,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then she says like, I'll find you later, which we know doesn't happen.
Yeah.
You know, the messenger gives it all, and eventually you run out of messages to send. And unfortunately, you know, they don't connect before that final message is sent, as far as we
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
That's sad. This again, these episodes are not full of joy, splendor.
No. Yeah. Well, I hope that we have a little bit of an epilogue to know if like Bix finds out that he dies on Scarif. Like, does she go back and try and find him after, they win
Or is
the
she the final
rebellion?
messenger? She tells the story of like
Yeah.
Cassian and the members of Rogue One.
Yeah. I I hope that there's a little bit more answers there for sure.
Yeah, I agree. And then seemingly the morning after that Bix leaves, her departure then leads to the birth of K2SO,
Mhm.
seemingly. Are you okay with this origin of the character? And we'll get into this one here for a bit, but what do you think about what was presented on screen?
I thought it was fine. I like the little like Frankenstein type aspect of it,
Mm-hmm,
of him
mm-hmm.
coming to life. Um yeah, I didn't like it was fine. Like it wasn't like crazy. I enjoyed I kind of wish that it was Cassian who like took out K2 and brought him back. Like he does bring him back
Mm-hmm.
himself, but I just wish they had more of like a beforehand interaction. But like I'm excited to see next week's
Yeah.
arc to see their relationship develop. And then see how that leads up to what we see in Rogue One.
So I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but in 2017, Marvel released a comic that was a one-shot that explained exactly how the two of them met.
Oh my gosh, no, I didn't. That's crazy. That's awesome.
I remember the day it came out. I was like, I love this story. I love these characters. I need to see how they met. So
Mm,
when on release day, I drove all the way to my local comic shop, bought the
yeah.
thing, read it, and I was like, okay, that was a fine story. Nothing spectacular, nothing special. It is very much
Interesting.
the Cassian rewires him, and there we go. So this is in complete contradiction to this story.
Got it. Got it.
So I thought there would be a part of this episode that they would just see Cassian take the shell of the K2 droid, put it on the ship, and then take it to Yavin, and then that would be it. We would just assume naturally, as that the audience, that would become K2SO,
Mm-hmm.
or it could not, and then therefore both of these stories could exist, and they'd be jumping on the toes of each other. But then they had to add that extra part there, where it's clearly okay. That's Alan Tudyk's voice. That's probably more than not K2SO.
Yeah.
So knowing that, how does that potentially impact your feelings on the sequence or not?
Yeah, so like I think that's what I wanted. What's in that comic book is Cassian, like you said, him rewiring K2, because I don't know if I'm remembering correctly, but at the recent Star Wars celebration in Japan, Alan kind of comments on the fact that K2 kind of adopts Cassian's personality because
Mm-hmm.
Cassian kind of like births him, I guess. I don't
Yeah, yeah.
remember if I'm
He
remembering
did say
correctly.
something awkward like that.
Something like
Yes.
that. And so that's why I wish there was a little bit more like beforehand of just Cassian and like the shell of K2 to know like that there is the essence of Cassian in K2 because of him like
Hmm.
capturing him or working on him or whatever it is. But again, like I said, like seeing what we did see, it was fine. Like it wasn't, I don't know, like it didn't like ruin things for me, but it wasn't impactful either. It was like it was just cool. That that's
Hmm.
K2, you know.
Now, how do you feel about like this is I think a fear that a lot of people have, where it's like people don't respect books or comics,
Uh-huh.
where if something is in a movie or a TV show and that is in direct contradiction of it, then they're like, why do I even read these things when they're supposed to be canon? But then they come out and they're like,
Right,
I ain't following,
recanonize,
I ain't
yeah.
keeping that story. This one comic that came out in 2017, we're living in 2025 now. I'm not being, this foothold is not keeping me down.
I mean, I think it depends. I think it depends on how it impacts the overall story. Like if it's something minor like this, like maybe some people think it's super major, but it like to me it wasn't that big of a deal to be like I guess retconned or whatever. But
Hmm.
if you take like a crucial part of a character and you change it, and that's when I think I start to have a problem with it. Problem in like I dislike it and I move on, but like I still hold
Hmm.
like a little
Hmm.
bit of a grudge, but I'm not like ripping apart the entire series because of it. But yeah, as
Right.
long as it's not a major part of the story or a character's personality, like as to like why we love these characters, as long as there's not changing
Hmm.
crucial parts of them, I don't have too much of a big deal with it.
Right. Right. I will say I don't feel like there's a ton of people like breaking down the walls of the internet, being like, "How dare you, Tony Gilroy?"
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I think this is one of those that people will let slide
Yeah.
ultimately. But it is interesting that they had a couple outs, I think, where they didn't have to follow exactly word for word what they were, um, to fully say like, hey, this is K2SO. They could have just alluded to it, and this is the audience would have had to do one of those like mental jumps through a
Mm.
hoop that you were talking about earlier.
Mhm.
um, but yeah, they went right for it, and as fans, we have to grapple with, all right, what is canon, what is not, and this, because of like the hierarchy, as some would say, that exists to these things. Um, this trumps a comic now, so
Mm.
this is the official origin, I would say, of it all.
Yeah.
So, do you think that because of the causality that Bix leaves and K2SO is born, that this is more of a meaningful relationship to Cassian because this is something that fills that void almost immediately?
I mean, I don't think anything could ever like truly fill the void of Bix's absence, but I think it is a nice distraction for Cassian to
Hmm.
kind of like
Hmm.
have someone he needs to watch out for and someone to watch his back
Yeah.
as well. So a little bit of that companionship and yeah, I mean, I'm just I can't speak too much on it because I'm gonna have to see what this next arc holds, like what types of missions they go on and their interactions and like I don't know how that relationship develops.
Hmm.
But I don't think, he could ever truly fill that Bix void. And I'm sure again, it's just I just in my opinion, it's a nice distraction for Cassian to and that's another thing too is like him throwing himself into these missions and just being like, well, I have nothing else, here. I am stone
True.
cold. I'm just gonna go ahead and get all these missions done, and me and K2 are just gonna do our job, and that's it. But that's not like a way of life. So I feel for
Yeah.
Cassian.
True. True indeed. So, all right, we're at the last question here, and we're at next week's set of episodes, 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern time next Tuesday. We'll get the episodes that will cover BBY1, the finale of the series. Do you have any speculation or idea as to where this story will go?
Well, I know, and you can correct me if I'm wrong too here, but I'm pretty sure it leads up to the very first scene of Rogue One, which is when he's meeting that like spy, that like
That's what they're saying. They're saying
intelligence
it'll end in the Ring
person.
of Kafrene.
Yeah. Which is cool, which is a cool tie back. I totally missed it in the first episode when she tells him the password is Kafrine. Um, Honestly, my only assumption is that whatever mission they go on leads up to that, and we see a little bit more
Hmm.
of K2 and Cassian's relationship develop. I would again like to see of an epilogue of like all these missing pieces. Also, I'm really curious about Deidre, like if we're gonna see any
Hmm.
more of her, because obviously she doesn't die on Gorman. You know, she's locked up and safe.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I wonder if we'll see more of her. Um, yeah, I mean that's and then also Bale. I'm pretty sure he still remains in the Senate, like all the way up until
Mm.
Alderaan is
Pretty much. Pretty
you know
much. Yeah, because Leia's still a part of the Senate too,
yeah. So
in the events of A New Hope. So yeah.
I wonder if we'll see him on Yavin because we see him briefly appear in Rogue One, and he like literally doesn't say anything in that movie. But I'm just curious to see if he'll have any more appearances in this last arc too.
Interesting. All right, follow me on this one.
Okay.
Because I got an idea. I got
Okay.
an idea. It could be completely wrong, and it probably will be. But I think we get the conclusion of Cassian assassinating Deidre, which was,
Ooh,
hinted at here. He didn't take the shot,
interesting. Yeah.
but I think for a mission, this would be him infiltrating and taking out, and then perhaps learning some more about what the Empire is doing, and then that's what leads him to Tivik,
Yeah.
and
No,
then the
yeah.
events of Rogue One.
That makes sense because Deidre is directly involved with the creation of the Death Star because of this
She's in
resource
it
that they
now.
need, and she's directly related, not related, or in relation with Krennic, and he's a big part of the Rogue One
He
story
is
and
it. Yeah.
Death Star. So that makes sense actually. That maybe his mission leads him back to Coruscant to assassinate or like torture Deidre, maybe even to get
Mm-hmm.
information
Mm-hmm.
out of her.
That
Um,
would be interesting. Yeah.
yeah. Wow. Okay. I like that. I like that theory.
I could be entirely wrong there, so don't don't get your hopes up if it's not that at all.
No, if it
But
makes
that's
sense. I
where my
had
brain is
nothing.
thinking right now.
Yeah, I like
Yeah, I'm
that.
like Deidre is not that we know of in the original trilogy at
Right.
all. We don't, she's one of those characters that we're like, oh, could have an expiration date as far as we know. So I think that could be it. I do wonder, is Saw Gerrera done? I don't think we got enough Saw in this season.
Yeah, I was also wondering about Vel and Wilmon because was very convinced in my head that
Yeah.
literally everyone was gonna die and Cassian was gonna be the sole survivor of everyone that we've been introduced to. So I'm wondering if we'll see more of their stories continue. A cool little cameo too is like Melshi and the like
Yeah, we
new
got the little Melshi.
recruits. That was fun too. But yeah, I wonder if we'll see more of Saw too because he's not in partnership with like Mon Mothma and like this overall whole rebellion, but like he is in kind of partnership with them. So I know that in Rebels we kind of see him leave, like
Hmm.
officially leave, but like
Yep.
I'm not like partnering with you anymore. So I wonder if we'll see how he ends up on like Jeddah and like why he
Hmm.
holds up there, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
that would be great to get that finality too on that one.
Yeah. So we'll see.
I don't know. It'd be interesting. We only have a few more days to go to get this conclusion to the story, and then apparently we'll never see Rogue One the same way again. So a rewatch of that will be almost necessary after watching these
Oh,
set of
yeah.
episodes.
100%, 100% for sure.
A true late night for all of us on the East Coast if you go straight into it right away, and then you might as well go straight into A New Hope after that too. Who's stopping you from doing a triple feature?
Yeah. Yeah, no sleep. Who needs sleep?
Who needs sleep? Take off the next day. You deserve it. All right, Tiara, this has been a fantastic examination of part 3 of Andor season 2. Where can the folks find you online and your shop crafting on Ilum if they want to A, buy something, or B, continue the conversation?
Yeah, so I am pretty much on all the social medias. I've got my YouTube, my Instagram, Threads, and TikTok. Mostly on Instagram is where I'm active, and I have my small shop where I make like little Star Wars inspired merch that I, draw and stuff. And I have a separate page for that, which is just Crafting on Ilum Shop. But if you have any questions or just want to follow along with like collecting, cosplay, convention adventures, it's all Star Wars focused, and that will be on Crafton on Ilum on my Instagram page.
Awesome. Any cons coming up that we should be on the lookout for fun content?
Yeah, so I've got Rebel Scum Con coming up in August. So I mean, it's still a ways
Nice. Some big
away.
announcements for that one.
Yeah, yes, I'm very excited for Sam Witwer. I met him at
Sam Witwer, Matt Wood,
yeah, I met him at
Katie
GalaxyCon
Sackhoff too.
just
Yeah.
recently. Yep, her. Yeah, there's a lot of big names coming to Rebel Scum Con this year. So that's in August, and then I'll be going to Legends Expo in September in California, and that's of course
Awesome.
just Legends focused for Star Wars. But those are my only two cons coming up. A little bit less than last year, but they're they're really fun cons anyways, so that's fine.
Well, we'll look at it with a glass half full kind of perspective. Only two so far. You never
Mm,
know what else could pop up down the
yeah,
line.
for sure, for sure.
Very cool. Make sure you folks listening go give Tiara a follow and go check out her store crafting on Ilum because there's awesome stuff. You just put up some Revenge of the Sith stuff too
I
on the store
did.
too, didn't you?
Yeah, I have
Yeah.
lots of Revenge of the Sith stuff for the 20th anniversary, and I have a ton of Andor stuff, of course. I've got big stickers and Mon Mothma stickers, and I've got a Syril sticker. I have a sticker of him eating cereal. So
Oh, too
that's
soon.
fun.
Too soon.
And then yeah, I've got a lot of different theme designs for Star Wars, so definitely check out the store. I've got something for everyone.
Yes, yes, please do. And pour some cereal out for Cyril while you're doing that, folks. So we'll be back next week with our final analysis of Andor season 2. Can't believe we're already here, but let's see how this thing comes to a conclusion. And until then, folks, may the force be with you. Take care.